Writing a book is like telling a joke and having to wait 2 years to know whether or not it was funny. Alain de Botton.
You're listening to Writing Roots, brought to you by Aspen House Publishing.
Welcome to Writing Roots. I'm Lee Hull.
And I'm Lee Esses. Today we're talking about one of my favorite aspects of tabletop gaming that is also one of the most intimidating aspects about tabletop gaming.
It's the feedback, the immediate feedback, because when you're writing a book, eventually a long way down the line, you'll get some feedback on it, and it can be difficult to find people to give you unbiased feedback on it. You're not ever quite sure, did this particular joke land? Does this character progression make sense? Why didn't they do it this way instead? Because it's all in your head, and you're not getting that real-time feedback. So all of that anxiousness of whether or not things work, there's an easy answer, and it is TTRPGs. People, your players or your friends, your DM, whatever side of the table you're on, there will be other people who can tell you and give you honest, real-time reactions to that joke that just made everyone go,
But those TTRPGs are a great place to test out these concepts and ideas that you aren't sure if it will land the way you're hoping it will. This can be something as simple as social dynamics between characters. If the cute, starry-eyed kid who's following around the group is annoying because they're singing constantly, or if it's charming and they kind of become a mascot and a theme song guy for the group.
You can also see the direct cause and effect in real time. Players don't always do what the DMs plan. There are a lot of times that I think I have set up what I want them to do really well. And then they're like, nah, we're going to do this instead. I set up the cause, and the players carry out the effect, and it's never what I had in mind.
This is the moment where you've got the field of death. There is a dead rabbit in this magic circle. All of the grass has died within the circle. A bird flies over the circle and then falls to its death mid-air. What do you think the players are going to do?
Push their friend inside?
The cause and effect that you set up and what the players want to do, it's almost never the same thing.
It's also really helpful for understanding how different people will respond. Because you, as an author, may try to be everyone at all times when writing, but that can be really hard. Understanding other point of views is essential for telling stories well. So how would a barbarian approach this type of encounter? Well, go ask the barbarian at your table. How would they do it?
In the same vein, when you as a novel writer understand the solution to the problem, but your characters have to get there, having a lack of information from one of the characters and the decisions that they make not knowing that this is the solution to the problem, that's a point of view you simply can't have no matter how great your imagination is, because you already know the answer to the problem. Other players will help you think of how they approach the solution as much as if they get there.
They can also help you figure out if a scenario even works in the first place, if it even makes sense. Because we think of a solution, and we think that is the best and the only solution. But sometimes somebody else will have, well, why don't we get out of the river instead of just willingly going over this waterfall? So let's instead find a way to paddle to shore before we go over the edge to the sharp rocks at the bottom.
So you have decided to test your ideas, run them across your players and your DM to make sure that everything feels realistic and makes sense and is that extra level of unexpected fun. You get the feedback and they go, Voldemort had trouble killing a kid. He doesn't seem like that much of a threat.
Why didn't he just drop him out a window?
You get that feedback. Now how do we apply it?
First and foremost, you need to remember the yes and. This is the improv skill where instead of disagreeing with what's given, you say, yes, I am a clown in tiny shoes. And I have this other skill as well, whatever that is.
Part of that yes and is recognizing the feedback that isn't consciously given, that somebody's not sitting you down and going, I liked this, I thought this was weird. That's a very conscious and very useful kind of feedback. But the subconscious feedback, the just being themselves and responding to the story, is much more organic as far as what your readers are going to be doing. So that's the type of stuff you pay attention to as well in your gaming.
Sometimes that can be as simple as laughing at a joke. They don't always realize that that laughter is feedback. So they don't know they're giving it, but you can take it and note it.
One of the most useful elements of getting this kind of passive feedback is noticing when things bore the readers, bore the audience, bore the players. Hating them is actually very useful because there's a potency to that emotion. Boredom or possibly annoyance are just kind of and something needs to change in order to get a stronger reaction, positive or negative.
So you can have something like groans at a bad pun. That's not bad feedback. Sometimes you make puns to get those responses. So that means it's good. It will also help you figure out if the world works, especially if you've set up your own system that you're playing within. Whenever players break the system, we can guarantee your characters would have tried the same thing in the world. So you can use people to play test whether or not this spell structure works, whether or not this piece of world building actually functions the way you need it to.
And most importantly, your players will let you know if something doesn't make sense or if it doesn't work. They will straight up call you out on it, and this is exactly the kind of feedback that you need during alpha edits and during your books as well, is if someone is thinking, these characters are morons, why don't they just walk around the gate instead of try to climb over it?
Or if something simply doesn't make sense. They can see something as a clear red herring or Chekhov's gun, or they don't think that it belongs. Pay attention to which is which in their responses and adapt accordingly.
These are the moments where you as a player are trying to set a mood. The moon is full and the crickets are chirping. There's barely a cloud in the ceiling. And a wolf howls in the distance as you're approaching the town. Every single player is like, I want to pet the wolf. It's a full moon. Maybe it's a werewolf. No one's paying attention to the town that you're going to or the clouds in the ceiling.
However, sometimes you just have to stand your ground. Not all feedback is good feedback. I mean, all feedback is good to have, but it's not always good to follow. So if the world doesn't make sense right now, you can explain it later. Sometimes you have, especially in something like a lit RPG where they have been isekai'd into a different world, things don't make sense right away, but you have plans to explain how it works later.
You can have these gaps in the story that actually designs intrigue that will help the players lean into it. They will hear the wolves and go, well, maybe we should go that way instead. That is something that you can learn to wield instead of just try to ignore and never have wolves howling. You can take the feedback of this character doesn't feel realistic and go, yes, I completely agree. There's a secret that I'm not telling you because it's a secret. Okay, now we understand that the Sunshine Disney Princess character accidentally got her entire family killed, and therefore she's trying to be optimistic when she doesn't feel it herself. So she might feel shallow, but there's something else going on. It's just secret, so you can keep it a secret.
But whatever their feedback is, you can use it in some way. If they have a question, you can make up an answer on the spot and stick to it to make a much more interesting and unexpected world building.
And especially things like the red herrings or Chekhov's guns. If these are accidents in your story and you don't realize that this is what's going to get the player's attention, using that helps it pay off and helps the players feel like their attention is worth paying to the story. So if they get engaged by the wolves howling, then they go investigate the wolves. Turns out the werewolves are being hunted by the farmers in the town, and you've stepped into the middle of this debate, blah, blah, blah. Using whatever it is that feels like a distraction can make you feel like a much more masterful storyteller than you might actually be when you're starting out. The skill is in using it more than avoiding the issue in the first place.
Hopefully this month has helped you learn of a new creative way that you can use to improve your writing. If you haven't played TTRPGs before, give it a shot. There's lots of ways to participate, lots of ways to join. We personally love it. We think it has done a great thing for our own writing, and we hope it can help you too. But before we sign off today, we need to do just a touch of housekeeping.
First off, we take every July off. Mostly because it's really hot in the studio where we live, so recording just becomes unfeasible. But it also gives us a chance to continue our own learning journeys and make sure that we get our writing done and these kinds of things. So we will be back in August, and we look forward to hearing from you in the meantime.
Our sound might change just a little bit because we are changing our studio setup again. But we will be back with a lot more great content starting in August. If you have questions, if you want to stay connected with us, we will continue to be active on our Discord server. You can find a link to that on our website.
We will also be at Killer Nashville, just sort of attending, having a good time.
We may possibly be on a panel. We're still waiting to hear back as of recording this, but we will have information on our Discord server whether or not we will be in a panel and when that will be.
So you've spent the last year learning a whole bunch about writing. Good for you. This is your chance to really apply it. Get involved with writing groups, to tell your stories that only you can tell. So until we see you again,
write selfishly.
If you have a question or comment for our hosts or a topic you'd like us to cover, send us an email at writingroots@aspenhousepublishing.com or find us on Facebook by searching for Aspen House Publishing.